our instincts, our investigators immediately recognized that this was not what it appeared to be, and saw that Mr. Lennon was attempting to elude accountability and elude justice. From that point forward, Mr. Lennon went into hiding and remained a fugitive for over a decade. But we did not stop. The Moore Police Department did not stop. And we engaged our partners at the United States Marshal Service. And the United States Marshals, especially under the direction of U.S. Marshal Johnny Coolman, are the best in the business at finding those who don't want to be found. And that's on display today. But to talk a little bit about their work and their efforts to pursue leads, along with our detectives' efforts to pursue leads, led us to where we are today. And recently, working with not only the U.S. Marshals, but the U.S. Attorney's Office, Mr. Lennon was located in New York State, where he'd been living under an alternative identity. A team of more detectives, along with more Oklahoma City Deputy U.S. Marshals and Marshals from New York State, flew out to New York and successfully took him into custody. What's important to note is the outcome of this investigation, this decades-long run, is the direct result of persistence, cooperation, and strong partnerships between local and federal partners. And I would tell you that U.S. Marshal Coleman's not only a friend, he's a close partner in law enforcement, protecting the state of Oklahoma and our community, along with the U.S. Attorney's Office and U.S. Attorney Bob Tracer. And we're deeply grateful for that collaboration. In closing about this investigation, I would like to point out to anyone that seeks to harm or exploit children, you need to know this. We will not stop. We will not lose focus. And no matter how long it takes or how far you run, we will come for you. You should always be looking over your shoulder. I'll now turn it over to U.S. Marshal Coleman to continue with the comments.
Next, I'd like to introduce District Attorney Jennifer Austin to make some comments about the prior cases in Cleveland County.
Thank you, sir. On the heels of what Todd Gibson has just said, not only will we continue to look for you if you run, we will continue to seek to prosecute you. So Mr. Lennon may have thought he got away with this, but he has not. Our charges from 2008 stemmed from aggravated possession of child pornography. Our office diligently prosecuted that case. It was pled before a judge, and a judge sentenced the defendant after he entered a blind plea to probation. He received probation on several counts of aggravated possession of child pornography over the objection of the state. While on that probation, he clearly violated it by, again, possessing child pornography. As soon as we were notified in 2000, access to a computer, which he was not supposed to be doing, and possessing pornography. Once we filed that motion, the defendant was arrested. He was in jail. He bonded out of jail, hired counsel, and that case got continued. While it was continued, the new charges, as Chief Gibson was talking about, the new charges were filed because we were able to verify through search warrants on getting information off of his devices that he did in fact have child pornography again. So we filed 8 counts of possession of child pornography against the defendant on March 7th of 2001. That is where the defendant then disappeared. After that, we knew he had staged that scene. We never believed that Mr. Lennon was deceased. We never believed that he was a victim of a crime. We believed he was trying to evade capture and to attempting to not be brought to justice. But obviously now we have got him. He has finally been located. All of these years this has been going on, like Chief Gibson said, we have all been looking for Anthony Lennon. Throughout the years, the Moore Police Department and the U.S. Marshals and my office have all worked together to follow all leads to find Mr. Lennon. Now that he has been found, we will bring him to justice. So our charges that we have against him are the probation violation and the new 8 counts of possession of child pornography. We will bring him back and he will be brought to justice. Hopefully now we can sentence him. He can be there for the rest of his life because these crimes lead up to life, and there will be no more children harmed by him. Thank you.
talk about the last 13 years. You know, the U.S. Marshal Service Metro Fugitive Task Force has worked on this case since 13 years ago. They've done a very exhaustive and far-reaching fugitive investigation. There's been over 100 search warrants executed, countless interviews across the United States, along with many, many road trips. We've also included, at headquarters, we have a unit called the Cold and Complex Case Group. The name speaks for itself. They get involved in these long, complex cases like this to help different districts work these cases. In 2020, we really reopened this case and revisited it in depth. Learned a lot. You know, we learned that Anthony Lennon's family really didn't care about his disappearance, didn't have any interest in it at all. Learned he was very knowledgeable with computers, had a master's degree in computer science, and was potentially seeking his doctorate. We recently received some new information and developed a possible location for Lennon in upstate New York. I will not be talking about how that information was developed, what that information was, because it could result in additional criminal charges for Mr. Lennon. So at that point, we consulted with the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Western Oklahoma and obtained a federal warrant for Lennon for failing to register as a sex offender, since we now knew he left the state of Oklahoma. Well, some of our local deputy U.S. Marshals, along with a detective from the Moore Police Department, traveled to New York to continue this investigation. And they, along with the New York, New Jersey Regional Fugitive Task Force, closed in on Lennon and arrested him outside a grocery store in Canton, New York, where he was a student at a local university. He was eventually identified through fingerprints while using the alias of Justin Phillips. And for your information, Canton is a small town in upstate New York with a population of about 7,000. It's 1,500 miles from here and about 20 miles away from the Canadian border. The New York State Police have now taken up that investigation and will be conducting search warrants up there for any possible crimes that were committed up there. I would like to thank United States Attorney Bob Traster and his staff for their assistance in helping us pursue these federal charges. You know, a crime Lennon was committing for 13 years. But once again, we had to get enough information to find out where he was before that could be filed. And it goes without saying to thank Chief Gibson and his staff for what they've done, for their assistance, and also for going with us to New York. And also the Cleveland County District Attorney's Office for sticking with these charges and in the pursuit of justice for Anthony Lennon. I also have to recognize the Metro Fugitive Task Force. I'd also like to recognize the individual task force officer that has spent 13 years working this case. Can't tell how many hours, days, and weeks have been put in on this case by a number of people that work here at the Marshal Service. But beyond our local investigative efforts, this long overdue arrest represents the tenacity and grit of the men and women of the United States Marshal Service who've been arresting fugitives for over 236 years. It also highlights our Metro Fugitive Task Force, as well as the U.S. Marshals Headquarters Cold Case and Complex Case Group, which we could not have done this case without their help. It's also a huge victory for justice, the rule of law, and all of our federal, state, and local law enforcement partners involved in this case. But to me, the most important part is this represents a great deal to the nameless children that were victims impacted by this crime. So once again, very honored to be standing up here with our partners today to announce a significant arrest, and now I'll open it up for questions if anybody has any. Yes, ma'am.
How was Anthony Lennon able to evade law enforcement for 13 years?
That's a great question, and at this point, we've been on this trail for a long time, and I'll tell you, we've been close before, but this time, obviously, we have him in custody. Let's just say that he's been very good at evading justice, but once again, just like that poster over there says, and just like Chief Gibson said, we never stop looking.
Yeah, and you mentioned he was using the alias Justin Phillips. Did he have other aliases that he went by while you guys were searching for him?
Yes, there are a list of aliases he's used over 13 years that we're aware of. Yes, ma'am.
For parents, obviously their biggest fear is this convicted child sex offender has been on the run for 13 years. He's committed these past offenses. What crimes has he been committing over this past decade? Do you believe that he has hurt further children while evading police?
Once again, a great question. I can tell you that search warrants are being ran in New York on devices and residences, and we'll see what they reveal to see whether or not future crimes have been committed.
What was the date that he was arrested on?
Yesterday.
Yesterday, okay.
Yes, sir. Last night about 6 o'clock.
You mentioned that he was enrolled at a local university. Was he in a computer science program, as you suggested he was looking to pursue a doctorate? What type of program was that he was enrolled in?
I don't know what classes he was enrolled in, but he attended school yesterday.
And do you know how long he had been enrolled in a school program for?
No, sir, once again, we've got a lot of questions, just like you do. We thought it important for us to get him in custody. Obviously, all of these investigative questions could be answered at a later date through interviews, but those are questions that we would like answers to as well.
Is he back in Oklahoma now?
No, ma'am, he's now currently in federal custody in Syracuse, New York.
The Cleveland County District Attorney talked about the charges that still associated with him.
Well, obviously, right now, there's a current federal charge of failing to register as a sex offender. Any future charges will have to be determined by the appropriate U.S. Attorney's Office, whether in New York or here, and they'll work in collaboration with the Cleveland County District Attorney to determine jurisdictional issues. If you want to respond to that?
Obviously, at this point, our case is pending and has already been filed, but we have that active warrant. So when he gets to us, we can then start the process again on that motion to revoke his probation and the active charges. If there are federal charges that are filed, in addition to the failure to register, like in the jurisdiction of New York, then we will have to work together with our partners in the federal system to determine basically who gets to go first. So it's kind of a game where we'll figure out where we're going to go first, and it's kind of the pieces will have to all work together. But we always stay in communication and we determine which needs to go first, which needs to go second. But the main goal will be to keep Mr. Lennon in custody during that entire time while we all have our cases on him. Obviously, the federal failure to register charge is here in this district, and then we have the ones in Cleveland County, but if there are some in New York, then we'll work together with that partner.
And a follow-up specifically for you, you expressed that there was some frustrations initially back when he was initially given just probation. Can you discuss within the last 13 years, have there been any reformations within the judicial system, within the courts, to better that more appropriately align with the charges or satisfy obviously what you as prosecutors seek to get within this these types of charges?
Well, the range of punishment in possession of child pornography is a very broad range. It carries up to 20 years. Aggravated possession of child pornography carries up to life. We were asking for a significant amount of time on that particular case. That judge at that time felt it was appropriate to give him probation based on the sentencing hearing that we had at that time. We had frustration over that because we feel that people who view child pornography are just as bad as the abusers and should be treated just as bad, just as harshly as the abusers themselves, even though they did not maybe perpetrate the crime, but they are recording it, distributing it, viewing it. Every time someone views an image of child pornography, they are re-victimizing that child. So we view that as that person should go to prison. The frustration that we have sometimes is different sentences within the different courts. The judges all have discretion if someone enters a blind plea to do what they think is appropriate. In this particular case, that judge felt that was appropriate. We obviously disagreed, but that's what he received. We knew that he would probably reoffend at some point, but it did 2012 or 2011 is when he came on, basically on the radar again for law enforcement at that time. So the range of punishment has always been there, and the legislature has really enacted some stiff punishments for child pornography, but it's always at the discretion of the judge if it's a blind plea, or if it's an agreed plea, or if it's a jury trial, obviously then the jurors will decide. But the punishment ranges are there. It just depends on the venue and where that we get to that sentence.
Chief, I have a question about the original staged crime scene. Can you speak to what, prompted your officers and detectives to believe that this was staged?
Absolutely. When we determined who the suspect was, obviously, detectives had been looking for him, knew the history, knew of the outstanding warrants that had just been issued previous to this disappearance. And then there were some things, Mr. Lennon maybe thinks he's a smart person, but he's not as smart as he thinks he is, and left some details at the crime scene that would lead experienced investigators to say that something doesn't look right, something looks out of place. What's interesting about it is he went to extremes, and we did determine that the large amount of blood at this staged crime scene actually was his, which would take quite a bit of effort. But some of the details that we would see in a normal crime scene that would be expected to be identified by an experienced detective just weren't there. And our detectives and our team picked up on that, which that coupled with the previous knowledge of a warrant just being issued led them pretty quickly to recognize this as a person fleeing justice, not as a victim.
How long had your investigators been in New York? Was this like a same day operation? Was there surveillance involved before you executed the arrest?
Well, let's just say we've been there long enough to have him under surveillance for a while. Once we receive a lead like that, it's not always, here's his name and here's where he's located. So they had to go up there and do some legwork between the deputies and the more detectives to do some legwork and some surveillance to locate him.
If you
What does the timeline look like from here on out for Mr. Lynn?
Well, on the federal side, obviously, he'll be arraigned up there in the federal court today in Syracuse. He has many rights after that, whether it's a identity hearing, preliminary hearing, and then at that point, it's up to a magistrate up there whether or not to ship him back here or not. Obviously, that's what we're requesting. And then he'll be brought back here via JPATS, our prisoner transport system, to face a federal charge. And then at that point, the U.S. Attorney's Office and the DA's office will get together and determine a series of who's going to prosecute first.
Any final questions for?
Once again, thank you all very much for coming. It really means a lot for y'all to come on such short notice. And also, we felt this was significant based on the severity of the crime, but we appreciate what you all do, and thank you very much.
Thank you.